Patriots. I'm Lee Watts, and this is Patriot Point, your source for news and information from a conservative, Christian, and common sense point of view. Well, this is the final program before Election Day. Thank you to everybody who has been so incredibly helpful in 1,000 different ways. I greatly appreciate it, and we're looking forward to a very strong finish and victory on Election Day. Don't forget to go out there and vote this coming Tuesday, May the 17th. Unless, of course, you're going to be voting for the other guy, and in that case, you need to show up to vote on Wednesday, the day after. Well, let's talk about the issue of the day, which is the debacle known as the Biden presidency and some of the huge problems we have with this. First of all, the leftist media is pushing the idea that inflation right now is at about 8.5%, 40-year highs. Nothing could be farther from the truth. It is not at 8.5%. It is not at 18.5%. Keep this in mind. On Election Day in 2020, the gas prices here in Kentucky was $1.68 a gallon. Today, it is $4.29 a gallon. That is not an 18% increase. That is greater than a 100% increase. When you go to the grocery store, are you paying 8.5% more than you did during the Trump years? No, you are paying substantially more than this. We are talking 50% more, sometimes again 100% more for different food items. Food, fuel, clothing, everything is exceedingly more than 8.5%. We, the American people, let me put a message out there to all the leftist Democrats, to Biden and the rest, we are not buying this that you are pushing down our throats, 8.5% my left foot. Let's talk about what he's doing with a debacle in the Ukraine. And I do mean a debacle. We saw a debacle with the Afghanistan withdrawal where we left behind our allies. We left behind all kinds of equipment that really emboldened Vladimir Putin to know that America has incredibly weak leadership and encouraged him to go ahead and invade the Ukraine right now. Well, this week, Biden and the leftists in Congress, including my opponent, Brett Guthrie, just voted with the Democrats again for a spending bill to send the Ukrainian people an additional $40 billion in aid. This is in addition, this is on top of the $13.6 billion that they voted to send them back in March. This is now a total of $53.6 billion. So I did a little bit of the math and I did some research on this. Did you know that in the United States we have 552,830 homeless people? So if we would have used this money to address the problem of American homelessness, people who are dying from exposure, dying from hunger, dying from disease, homeless people in the United States, if we had used this money for Americans, you could have given every single homeless American, every man, woman, and child, $97,000 each. Not per family, $97,000 each for every single homeless man, homeless woman, homeless child in the entire nation. We could have wiped out entirely homelessness in the United States. But what did Biden, the Democrats, and Brett Guthrie vote to do? We're going to send that off to somebody else. I am very much America first. We can help them in 1,000 different ways. We should help America first. Now, to put this in contrast, the entire European Union, all of those countries put together, have sent a grand total of $143 million. $143 million. We have sent more than $53 billion. It's almost as if we're paying somebody off in the Ukraine. Isn't that just kind of a crazy idea? I looked up some of the statewide debts. We have billions of dollars of debts from all the different states across the country. So I looked it up. How much money that we just shipped overseas, in addition to the $51 billion we sent last year overseas, the United States could have paid off the entire state debt, where the debt is down to $0.00. They could have paid off the entire state debt of the following states all put together. They could have done Alaska, Vermont, Delaware, South Dakota, North Dakota, Maine, Montana, Iowa, Idaho, Arkansas, Wyoming, Nebraska, Nevada, and Tennessee. All of those states put together would actually just be a little bit less than the money we just sent over to the Ukrainian people, which I'd like to notice. They should not be invaded. I would like to help these people. But you know what? America first on these type things. Now, let's talk about some of the other problems that we have. Not only are the leftists sending billions of dollars overseas, I don't think, and inflation has gone crazy, I do not lay the fault of this at the feet of the American people. The American people did not vote for this guy, for his party, or their policies. Something I encourage you to do this week, in addition to voting on Tuesday, take a few minutes out of your schedule and watch the movie 2,000 Mules. I challenge anybody to watch that and then say that Joe Biden is a president of the United States with a straight look on their face. And some people will say, well, he's already been inaugurated, so we can't do anything about it. Baloney. If somebody robs a bank and then they get away from the crime scene and later we find that person, we're like, well, you robbed the bank and since you got away with it, then we're just going to let you go because you did get away with it. No, they still committed a crime. It is still wrong and needs to be made right. Another thing that separates me from my opponent, who actually voted for Biden to certify his election when I think it was fraudulent. The other guy voted against President Trump. I supported him. Just thought I'd point that out. So I would like to end up today with two particular things. One, this is the very last program before Election Day. So I'd like to give you the top 5 things that really separate me from my opponent and reasons that I would ask you to vote for Lee Watts for Congress. The first issue in particular would be an issue which is of preeminent importance, and that is the issue of pro-life. I am proud to say I am 100% pro-life. As a matter of the voting record, my opponent did vote in 2020 to send Planned Parenthood more than $80 million of taxpayer funding. That is the nation's largest abortion provider, and he voted to send them $80 million. I don't call that being pro-life. Let's also talk about gun rights. I am a combat veteran. I am very much in support of our Second Amendment rights. As a matter of the voting record, my opponent in September of last year did vote for a bill that would take guns away from our veterans. A very anti-gun rights, anti-veterans type of vote. Let's talk about also, again, certifying the Biden election. I think it was fraudulent. My opponent did vote against Trump to certify Biden into office. Let's also talk about taking money from Big Pharma. Did you know that he right now ranks 3rd in all of the United States Congress in taking the absolute most money from Fauci's big pharmacy friends? I really think if you're being paid more than $1 million by big pharmacies, chances are you work for them and not for the people. And then finally, while Lee Watts is a decorated combat veteran, my opponent has been a career, lifelong politician since the 1990s, and I think that is entirely too long. So the last subject I would like to cover today has to do with a Bible story. I'm a devout Christian. I'm a preacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I want to tell you a little Bible story that I think you might find very relevant. It's a story about Daniel. If you ever went to Sunday school more than one time, you probably heard the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Well, Daniel worked in the government, and there were some other people in the government who didn't like him. He kept making them look bad because he was doing a good job. He was exposing how they were doing a bad job, and so they got very jealous of him, and they wanted to get rid of Daniel because they was just calling things out. So they deceived the king into throwing Daniel into the lion's den, and because they wanted to try to get rid of Daniel and try to make the king do it. So what happened at the end of the night? Was Daniel defeated, or did Daniel come out victorious from that night? Well, that night, Daniel's actually the one that came out with the victory. Well, the king finds all of this out. He takes Daniel, puts him into a position with him in the government. He serves alongside of the king for years. Daniel doesn't hold any bitterness towards the king, if you actually read the story. And the people that tried to deceive the king, gave the king bad advice, they're actually the ones who wound up getting defeated by the end of the story. So just a happy little story there about Daniel and the lion's den. And I just thought that'd be a good one to share with everybody today. So I am Lee Watts. This is Patriot Point. Don't forget to vote on Election Day. I will be going over the election results this coming week. So make sure to tune into that. And until next week, I'm Lee Watts reminding you that liberty is not a spectator sport.